I'm Michael Laron, and this is the Writer's Journey podcast, where you get a window into the life of a working science fiction and fantasy author. I'm on a mission to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I share my progress and discover what inspires my books and how I write them. You can find the show notes for today's episode at michaellaron.com/podcast. This week, I'm giving an update on my work, and I'm answering your questions. Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of the podcast. In writing news, I'm still making progress on the Soundmade Sonata Urban Fantasy series, so no major updates to report right now, other than it's coming along nicely, and I'll have some material to share with you very soon. For some more background on the research I'm doing on this series, be sure to check out episode 3 at www.michaellaron.com/episode 3. Also, my dark fantasy series, The Last Dragonlord, will be coming to audio. I signed a deal with narrator Miles Miley. We just wrapped up production on Book 1, and Book 2 will go into production around the middle of May. I cannot wait to share this with you guys. It sounds awesome. In marketing news, I've got some exciting things to share. I recently appeared on the Anchor Coming Soon podcast. Anchor is a social media platform for podcasting that is doing some really cool stuff in the audio space. I sat down with Brendan Bigley at Anchor, and we chatted about the Writer's Journey podcast. I'll drop a link in the show notes. I was featured on the front page of the app, and I got some incredible exposure for the show. Here's how I did it. Anchor put out a request for people to create coming soon podcast trailers, and they invited people to email them with their show ideas. I did exactly what they asked. I made a quick pitch trailer. It was like a minute long, I think, and I got their attention. It was really that simple. So shout out to Brendan, John, and Brian at Anchor for providing me with this great opportunity. It brought a lot of new people onto the show. And that opened the door to do another podcast interview with Russell Anderson Williams of the Creative Action Takers podcast. That was a fun interview too, and one of my favorites actually. We talk about a lot of different things, but we don't just talk about writing. We talk about the actual overarching act of creativity. Link is in the show notes. That's it for news this week. I want to give a shout out to a new patron of the show and of my Patreon platform, and that is Carriot Eccleston. Carriot has been following me for a while now, since back in my YouTube days, and I appreciate her support. She's a fellow author working on her first novel, and she's got a really cool blog too. Looks really nice, and she writes about some cool stuff, so I'll drop a link to her website in the show notes. Thank you, Carriot. And as luck would have it, we have a couple of questions submitted by our patron of the show, Carriot. Question number 1 is, what outlining method do you use? That's a great question, Carriot. I've used every outlining method you can think of. Hero's Journey, Plot Point Theory, Snowflake Method, etc. These days I use the Writing into the Dark method by Dean Wesley Smith. Essentially, how it works is that you write without an outline and you make up the story as you go. It's not something I'd recommend for someone on their first book or two, but it's an advanced storytelling method that authors can aspire to. And you've probably seen this, Carriot, but for those who haven't seen it, on my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, I did a video called How to Outline a Novel in 10 Different Ways. I recorded this back in 2015, but it's still a really good resource. In the video, I go through every major method of outlining, and I talk about the pros and cons of each. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Carriot's second question is, how long do you outline before starting a draft? That's another great question, Carriot, and I don't outline anymore, but when I did, I was outlining in about 2 to 3 days prior to writing my novel. My very first novel took me 4 to 5 months to outline, but it gets faster. Eventually, you don't even need to outline. When you write your next novel, apply the lessons you learned from outlining the first time around, and you'll be surprised at how much less time it takes. It should get exponentially faster with every novel you write. And I have one final thing to talk to you guys about. I also got, drumroll please, a first sponsor for the show. I'm only 8 episodes in and I'm already making it rain. That Anchor interview I did really opened some doors for me. A listener of the show reached out to me via email and he offered to pay me $2,000 if I would advertise his business. I could not turn this away. I got bills to pay, guys. Plus, this guy owns a really ritzy restaurant. I think it's in Colorado or Wyoming or somewhere. I don't even think $2,000 would buy me a napkin at this place. Seriously, it's that lavish. He sent me the script this morning and I haven't had a chance to read it, but I know it's going to be good, so I'm going to wing it. Here we go. This week's episode is sponsored by Chesapeake of the West. Say it with us. Decadence. Decadence. After a hard day at work, you deserve the finer things in life. Stop by Chesapeake of the West, where we offer the finest selection of the best oysters the Rocky Mountains have to offer. These spring water oysters are raised under the big sky, and they're GMO and gluten-free. Gulf of Mexico, step aside. The real Chesapeake Bay? Get out of here. Don't let the naysayers fool you. Our pearls are the finest bull testicles money can buy? Rocky Mountain oysters? What are those? Hold on a second. Let me Google this. What the? Oh my. Jesus. Thanks for joining me this week. If you enjoyed the show, here are a couple ways to help a brother out. If you're listening to this on Anchor, favorite the show. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, do me a favor and write me a review and share it with your friends. You can of course visit my website and learn more about my work at michaellaron.com. If you have a question, send me a voice message on Anchor and you just might hear it on the show. I leave you with a quote. Success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you're doing or learning to do. Pele.